Greetings from Russia. Today we're visiting Escort, an international manufacturer of transport telematics equipment. Lately the company has been literally bursting with innovations, so it'll be really interesting to talk to their CEO, to visit their workshops and headquarters. Let's roll.
We started out manufacturing with the dream to make it as easier as it gets for installers and integrators to do their job. The sensors used in transport telematics will switch to wireless technology. Now, we reached the point where we phased out any contractors because we couldn't control the whole production process. Now, our equipment is marketed to 36 countries of the world. That's our cabinet where we grow organic fresh vegetables. You can't start up a new product and make it perfect at once.
Anton, how old are you?
I'm 32.
When did you join the company and at what position?
I started here as an engineer responsible for installations, implementations and technical support. I had worked a lot of different positions in this company, and the last 4 years I've been the CEO and the executive director of the few projects concerned with precision equipment, sensors, weather stations, different gas sensors.
How did your company get started?
We started Escort in 2004, and the initial company was dealing with ready-to-deploy solutions for transport monitoring systems. And the first thing we did was the implementation of security devices for luxury cars. It involved a lot of highly specific solutions. Some projects were totally outside of the box, like a fingerprint car starter. And it was back in 2005.
You were the first Russian company to start the mass production of wireless fuel level sensors, right?
We were not the first ones to launch wireless sensors, but we were the first in Russia to launch wireless sensors based on Bluetooth 4.0, autonomous wireless sensors to be exact. It means that these sensors don't need an external power supply since they have a battery for the total service life of the device. Once we saw that the GPS tracker manufacturers, at least here in Russia, were trending to support Bluetooth 4.0 with low energy protocol, the project was immediately relaunched. We were able to make BLE sensors quite promptly and wrote the protocol for them, which was supported by some GPS trackers quite fast. And some GPS trackers are expected to support it any day now. So we see that most likely the sensors for transport telematics will switch to wireless technology. First of all, it makes the installation process so much easier. Secondly, it is quite cheap in terms of operation. You don't need any wires or connectors. Thirdly, it enables to reduce a great deal of sabotages coming from the drivers, because here we eliminate the main component that most of the drivers tamper with. We know that the first thing a driver tries to tinker with is wires and connectors of the fuel sensor. Here we don't have any.
What GPS tracker manufacturers support you and share your vision?
Now we are being 100% supported by two manufacturers, that is a Russian manufacturer, Telematics, and a European manufacturer, Telematics. Here we can say for sure that some of their GPS trackers with Bluetooth 4.0 on board support our sensors 100%. 10 or 12 our leading companies in Russia are also on the way, and we hope they will implement this protocol within the next couple of months.
What sensors will become Bluetooth-based after fuel-level sensors?
Currently, we have mass production of autonomous fuel sensors with Bluetooth 4.0. We are producing a temperature sensor with Bluetooth 4.0. This quarter, we will convert the whole range of our sensors, that is about 9 different sensors, to Bluetooth 4.0 technology. But it doesn't mean that we're shutting down the wired sensors altogether. It will be a gradual transition. Here we don't jump the gun. They understand that there is a number of players on the market today that are not yet inclined to trust this technology. They need time to adjust, and it takes time to gain their trust. So we don't take wired sensors out of manufacturing.
How do you see the future of Bluetooth sensors?
We're almost 100% sure that in the next couple of years, Bluetooth sensors will completely replace the wired solutions. We have a few requests coming from foreign companies that are actually ready to use these sensors, but not in conventional telematics systems. The system they're willing to create will be based on the driver's tablets, and it will collect data directly from our Bluetooth sensors without any trackers. In this case, a tablet will be connected to our fuel sensors, and then the tablets will translate this data to some dispatch system, either yours or some other.
Equipment manufacturing is a complex system. Where did your initial capital come from?
Let me remind you that in 2004 we started as an integrator that doesn't require a lot of money to start.
Maybe some approximate figures.
Well, the most expensive thing to launch the production is equipment for the SMT line. It is about $450–600,000.
Who is the founder of the company?
The company has two founders. One is a very talented engineer, and the other is a very talented investor. The talented engineer is the chief designer and developer behind all our current products. The other guy invested the money. One of the investors and one of the company founders have established this holding. Here we have our printed circuit board SMT line. Now we've reached the point where we phased out any contractors because we couldn't control the whole production process and couldn't be responsible for the quality of our products. That is why it was decided to purchase an SMT line. So, all the equipment, with no exceptions, is the in-house manufacturing, because this way we can fully control the quality and can quickly react to any product changes. Right now, we see radio components being mounted on the sensor board. These are SMD components, different resistors and capacitors. Then, there the board undergoes all the electrical testing. After that, it is transferred to the assembly area for wiring. That's what it looks like. When the board is transferred to this area, we attach the wires and set attachable equipment, for example, batteries for Bluetooth sensor. It is installed in here, inside the casing. Then a corrugated tube is installed on the top of the board, and the item is transferred to the connectors installation. There we install connectors and then transfer the item to the chemicals area, where it is spotted with compound, and then final testing is carried out. There are different testing stages. We perform general tests for a batch of sensors. They include vibration testing, and here we have a vibration test system. Then they include testing in the heat chamber. They include electrical testing with high voltages, reverse polarity tests, short circuit tests. That was a batch testing. For every single item, after having completed its assembly, we perform submerged testing in fuel. When a sensor is fully assembled, during its calibration, it is submerged in fuel where we test all of its specifications, proper reaction to changes of the fuel level, proper functioning of all its modes, and correct firmware installation. The testing is carried out here in the workshop, and without it, our QC won't release it. And here we carry out the last testing stage, Every sensor transferred to the area undergoes testing by our proprietary program for configuring. Having passed all the testing stages, the sensor undergoes porting. These sensors over here have been already ported with a compound, covered with a lead, and pressed with these press units. Then we apply a varnish over the surface to preserve the marking for almost the entire sensor service life. Now, the final testing. You can see these tubes over here that are filled with fuel. Actually, it's diesel fuel that we change on a weekly basis, according to the regulations. Every sensor unit is submerged in fuel to check if the measurements of the sensors are correct. That's where the final rejection takes place. You can start up a new product and make it perfect at once. It requires some field testing, and we carry out field testing as well. We have a company in our holding dealing with deployments here in Tatarstan. It is actually our parent company that we started in 2004. It is still functioning, and it has quite a large pool of customers. These include some real fleet operators working with the different kinds of equipment. They're first who test the devices, so our Bluetooth sensors were first beta tested by our customers. The second testing stage was performed with our loyal dealers. They tested the devices in their regions from Kaliningrad to Khabarovsk. For the first stage, we carefully launched these sensors to the market.
What drawbacks do the sensors have at the moment?
We need to upgrade some documents. There are compatibility issues with Android and iOS apps.
What international markets are you in at the moment?
Now our equipment is marketed to over 36 countries with special focus in Latin America and Eastern Europe.
These two directions are separate, but equally perspective for us. Quite a number of sensors are now being sent to Brazil. Our products are well represented in Mexico. In near future, we are planning to set up offices in different continents of the world.
What international market is the most fast-growing for you at the moment?
Currently, the most fast-growing market for us is Latin America. The penetration rate of fuel level sensors there is almost zero, so it gives us all the reasons to believe that this market will skyrocket the way it happened here in Russia in 2011-2012. Back then, it started from square one and showed a growth of 200–300%. And now, a similar situation is happening there.
What is the difference between market demands in Russia and other countries? Maybe there are some specific features?
Yes, there are some peculiarities, but they are rather linked to the skills and engineering vision of people born in Russia. Foreign markets, and Latin American markets in particular, are facing a shortage of qualified personnel that can easily drill a hole in the tank, install the sensor, and connect the wires to the cabin. For them, it's a real tragedy, and when we start explaining what has to be done, it gives them a headache and they say that it will take the whole week. And that is actually so. In some companies it takes us 3 days to install one sensor, 1 day to drill a hole, 1 more day to connect the wires, and the 3rd day to calibrate the tank. It's quite a problem for us. So they're lacking qualified personnel and it affects the market growth. And we actually have plans how to fix it. We are preparing now a comprehensive training program for the local employees that will allow them to reach the same level of installation rates and prices to launch the sensors on the market as soon as possible. Extended terms of installation lead to increased installation costs for the end customer, and they have to pay a king's ransom to install just one sensor. And that is another factor that slows down multifold growth of sales in this region. And in the companies and countries where it was successfully eliminated, we witness fast and robust development. For example, in Brazil, there are a few companies which are not afraid to install sensors and do it as good as Russian companies. But the secret is, it is being managed by a Russian person. They had arranged a proper training for the entire engineering crew. They explain all the tricks that they brought from Russia. That is why we're experiencing a very rapid development. And they're literally becoming monopolists, therefore offering these high-quality, cost-efficient solutions.
And we need to multiply this experience for other countries. We know how to do that, and we will definitely do so.
Wireless fuel level sensors are a clear success story of Escort. But now we want to hear about some fails or failed experiments.
Well, there have been, and there obviously will be fails, and we are learning from them and eliminate them in our new products. As for a particular example, I can single out our Escort TD online sensor. We were facing some problems at the start of sales, but they were mostly related to another company, not us. The problem was coming from our receiver supplier, though they were denying it for a long while and were not giving us any solutions. It caused a lot of trouble for our integrators and distributors.
Now let's talk about your corporate culture. How do you organize the work of employees? For example, in some IT companies, there are no fixed office hours for the employees. So basically, they can work anywhere and anytime. Do you have something similar implemented in your company?
We don't have a corporate policy given in 3 volumes, but there are some principles that we are trying to stick to. As for the dress code, we don't have any particular one. As you've probably noticed, we have a pretty casual dress code, as long as it's reasonable, of course. We have some recreation zones. We even have a place to get some sleep during the lunch break, because we understand that a 15-minute nap after lunch can make you twice as productive than if you didn't do it. We don't offer no fixed office hours, but the schedules are very flexible. Nobody will give you hell for being 40 minutes late. Together, we agree the timing when employees start and end work. They can follow the standard schedule or create their own schedules themselves. But we don't request our employees to bring any sick notes, neither to stay at work from 8 to 5.
And for that, we have our control points, or KPIs for each employee, that are different for every one of them, including office managers who have their own KPIs. If the KPI is 100% met, then everything's fine. If somebody underperforms, then we will research why.
And how do company employees unwind your latest team retreat?
Our latest team bonding event was the Hero Race. We as employers paid the admission fees for the race. We made a team of the strongest and most goal-oriented members, and together we passed all the obstacles of the course.
Now we're staying in your conference hall. Please tell us what kind of events are held in here.
It's a very interesting place. Here, we have our Case Club meetings, which are held every second Wednesday of the month. There, we are trying to discover new, talented employees for our top management positions. So, the purpose of this event is as follows. For quite a while now, we've been inviting a lot of business-related people to this club. There are some prominent businessmen with large businesses, creative people, marketing pros, and talented students who want to show what they're worth.
In the framework of this event, we are working on some unorthodox cases, trying to solve them. We try to help out the companies which turn to us for assistance. And meanwhile, we watch the participants as they act, represent their products, the way they think,
and direct their activities. And I can definitely tell that a great number of our top management and executives heading different projects in the holding came from these meetings. For example, our Smart Garden project mentioned earlier is headed by the Case Club alumni.
Can you please tell more about the Smart Garden project?
Do you remember how grannies used to have these balcony gardens and once a year it yielded a tomato or two? Now we transformed it into something more contemporary. So that is what it will look like, but a lot nicer of course and more beautiful. Here you can grow some greens or fast-growing vegetables. It operates without soil or mud on a water-based solution. It's hydroponics if I'm not mistaken. The process will be fully automated and it will be fully controlled via a mobile app. So, wherever you are, your whole garden is just a touch away, and you won't have to dig in the dirt or add pests. It will be automated as much as possible. A person can see everything what happens in his cabinet and can monitor any processes and manage them with the mobile apps or with desktop apps via PC. People living in the cities are deprived of the possibility to grow organic vegetables under their control, even in their backyards. By the way, more and more families are now turning to organic food, and this way is the easiest and the cheapest one to grow organic vegetables, while you can have them on your table without even leaving the house.
It's obvious that here you're dealing with a lot of projects. Your company is always evolving, always trying something new. How many projects are you working on at the moment?
Well, there are a lot of companies in the holding. If we put aside all the other projects and talk only about our companies in the electronics field, then there are at least 6 projects. The Smart Garden, Fuel Level Sensors, wireless systems connected with LoRaWAN, weather stations and LED lamps. And over here, by the way, is the most recent addition to our product range, an autonomous weather station that can provide a high-precision monitoring of the current weather conditions. The service that we developed here allows to predict and prevent possible plant diseases. This is mainly tailored for the agricultural economy, because there, for example, bad grape harvest can cost millions and millions of rubles. But our system and our weather station help to avoid it. It predicts the diseases based on the factors that precede the disease. For example, if it was about 30 degrees Celsius for 3 days in a row, with this and that wind direction and humidity, then the plant is highly likely, with probability up to 98%, to be affected with this disease, and a corresponding alarm will be sent. And then, upon receiving such alarms, agricultural companies and workers will make the right decision, either to water it or not, or to manure it or not, or to resort to some measures in order not to lose the crops. Basically, this weather station is one and only station that was made in Russia, patented in Russia, and got the software that was also written in Russia.
What plans does Escort pursue to take over the world?
To take over the world? It's like the line from this cartoon Pinky and the Brain, if I'm not mistaken. What are we doing tomorrow? And this is our plan exactly, to take over the world. We want and we will actively expand to export markets in particular. And considering the exchange rate issue here in Russia at the moment, we have every chance to succeed.